Well, welcome back, everyone. I am Dan Roberts, your host of Tech Whispers. And over the years, I've had the honor, the privilege, the joy of sitting down with more than 100 truly exceptional CIOs, chief digital officers, chief technology officers. And like most hosts, I usually start off by telling you exactly why my guests are so impressive. I'm going to do a little different today. I'm not going to tell you the Sears Merritt story. I'm going to reveal it over the next 40, 45 minutes or so. Because Sears is not the kind of leader who spends a lot of time telling the world what he's done. He's the kind of leader who just keeps doing it quietly, thoughtfully, intentionally, and at a level that if you're not paying attention, it's easy to miss. He orchestrates this amazing work without beating the drums and look at me, look at me. And that's exactly why this conversation is so interesting and worth leaning into. So, Sears, welcome to the Tech Whispers. And, it's great to have you here. And I want to start with, as someone who spends a lot of time doing the work, making the magic happen, not promoting it, but yet people talk about your work, people know the story, it comes through. So, just curious, is that just who you are? Is that how you operate? Is that a conscious leadership choice? But, anyways, welcome and let's start there.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Dan. I've been looking forward to our conversation for a long time, so it's great to connect here, and eager to spend some time with you today. It's certainly not something I kind of do, consciously. I would say I'm motivated by the work we do here at MassMutual, and the gratitude and the satisfaction that I get really comes from that. Maybe less so than going out and talking about it from time to time. Although I'll say, forums like this and spending time talking to people like you is actually one of the great reasons I like doing it. So.
So, Steve, I want to build on that for a second because as I think about why my wife and I have stayed with Mass Mutual so long, it doesn't come down to a moment or a product. It's really the consistency and a feeling of being taken care of over time. And as I've thought a lot about this, as I've dug into this and preparing for today, I keep coming back to the idea of Mass Mutual being a customer first, or what you all say, a policyholder first company in culture. So a lot of companies say things like that, but very few actually deliver on it consistently, especially in a world where things are moving faster, things are getting more complex, expectations are changing, rising. So, Sears, what's different about you and Mass Mutual and how you make this real?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. MassMutual's been around for, like you said, 175 years this year, in fact. And our policyholders and customers have a relationship with us that is measured in decades. And it's really, when you get right down to it, it's based on trust, and MassMutual's ability to fulfill those promises we make, when folks like yourself, you and your spouse and other customers get an insurance product from us. So I think that's an amazing part about this business, and in particular, it's an incredible part about being a mutual company. Everything we get to do is in exclusive service of our policy owners. There isn't shareholders. There aren't any other stakeholders but you, and your spouse and the rest of the policy owners. So that permeates the culture here, and it certainly is one of the big reasons that I love being a part of MassMutual. We get to wake up every day and come to work and know that everything we do is in service of our policy owners.
Well, I'm getting at that stage in my life where the end result of our work together really matters and is really paying off. And one thing I would say, it's yeah, great products, great service, but just the consistency, the continuity over that period of time. And so, how do you make that real for the policyholder? How do you just consistently excel in that area as a company?
I think it starts with always making sure you're focused on the people that are counting on you. So it's again showing up every day and saying, what do our policy holders need? What do our customers need? What do they expect of us? And ultimately, that boils down to, first and foremost, it's the promise we made to them, and that promise is timeless. That's something that whether you're a new policyholder or somebody like yourself that's been with us for decades, that's something that stands the test of time and keeps us focused on the most important things in the business. And then I think not everything stays the same. Um, the way that we meet people where they are with the solutions that they're looking for, that certainly changes. It's not something that's static. Um, how we do business with our policyholders and the advisors that we work so closely with to make sure they can meet folks and serve the needs of their clients as well. It's something that changes through time. So we really make sure that step one, we're focused on our core purpose. And then how we fulfill that purpose is what we, periodically assess and change based on, again, where people are, where technology is going, and maybe most importantly, where our customers and our advisors want us to go.
Yeah, as you were talking, Sears, I was thinking about the changing. My hunch is your policyholders are changing, right? Someone like myself versus a 20 something, right? Probably have different expectations. So how do you meet everybody where they're at? Everyone's got a different digital experience, expectation, but how do you do that consistently across those different groups?
Yeah, well, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. I think it's first understanding what our policyholders need and expect, and then making sure we're focused on meeting those needs. Some folks would say at this point we're omni-channel. I think that's probably a reasonable way to talk about it. But given who we serve, and given their needs and their wants for how they want to engage, you can work with MassMutual certainly via an advisor. Who's going to sit down with you and offer holistic financial planning and make sure that you've got a solid plan and a set of protection and wealth products that you need to meet that plan. How you choose to get those, again, is a choice that the consumer gets to make. You can do that directly with a person, but you can also do that digitally through all the platforms that we've kind of built up and deployed to drive those experiences. So again, whether that's a wealth experience, an insurance experience, or really anything in between, we've got ways to serve you based on what you want to do.
Fantastic. I know there's a lot of, just knowing the leadership there, there's great strategy, there's great technology that enable all that. But I think it always comes back to people for you all. And as you're talking, that just gets reinforced. And so our first mystery questioner, this is a special part of this program. I think that kind of tees up this first question for you. So let's listen in and have some fun with this.
Sears, over the past 5 years, I've watched you lead with passion and purpose, anchored in data, driven by empathy, and committed to outcomes that make a real difference for the business, customers, employees, and policyholders. You embody one of the most important principles of leadership, identifying and developing talent, while recognizing that talent today is defined not just by experience, but by judgment, adaptability, and the ability to navigate constant change. With all the great work you are leading in the generative AI and agentic AI space, my question to you is, as AI increasingly transforms underwriting, claims, fraud detection, and customer engagement, which human capabilities do you believe will remain most critical for technology leaders in the insurance industry?
Wow, there's a lot packed into that, Sears.
There is. That was great. I think that is an exceptional leader on my team, Sharmila Ramar. So yeah, there's a lot in there. I think going back to people, and maybe just kind of going all the way back to kind of how we started talking about things that are static and dynamic. I do think some of the core values and mindsets that we're going to need out of our leaders Sharmila started to highlight a little bit, and I would say those are timeless and they're static. It's sound judgment and making sure that the decisions you are making are consistent with the outcomes and ultimately the purpose of the business you're operating in. So that's super important. And at the same time, while it might sound easy to do, depending on the situation you're in, that can actually be a real challenge, which leads to I think some other really important attributes. One of them is making sure you're surrounding yourself with exceptional leaders that you can count on and talk to. Making sure that you've got a broad network, again, of trusted colleagues and associates that can also share their views on how to make decisions. I think being able to tap into that information is super important. So I think sound judgment is a big one. I definitely think, particularly in the age of what is now being called agentic AI, really making sure that leaders and individuals are clear on accountability. So it used to be, and maybe to some extent still is in various parts of our business and our life, but you used to do the work, and so you understood how it was getting done, and you could be accountable for it. In the age of AI, I think we're going to be doing a lot less work. But that doesn't mean we're not accountable for the outcomes and the outputs that those AI systems that we're hard at work creating. We're in charge of all of that. So I think making sure that we continue to drive accountability, and more importantly, remain focused on outcomes and quality of outcomes is going to be a really important, I would say, timeless trait of people. And then at the same time, everything is changing around us. I mean, it's AI today, it's quantum tomorrow, it's a technology we haven't heard of after that. So being able to be adaptable, being able to learn how to learn, is a really important skill that I think all of us need to lean into and take advantage of when we can, because that's what's going to let us remain able to create an impact and be valuable to an organization.
I love where you just went around the whole adaptability, learning to learn. It's couldn't be a better setup for this next mystery questioner, and actually a two-part. So let's listen to the first part, and you're going to know who this is right away. So check it out.
Hey, Sears, surprise. You've often talked about leadership less as control and more as learning, systems, emergence. So I wanted to dig a little deeper into something that I personally have valued a lot, and I think you do as well. So I'm going to break this down into two questions. The first is something you've talked about, which is learning under pressure. And in machine learning, the learning rate matters. Too fast and you overcorrect, too slow and you fall behind. So when you're operating under pressure or rapid change, how do you personally adjust your own learning rate as a leader?
Well, that is a very good colleague, Manoj. Yeah, how do I adjust my learning rate? That's a really good question. I think first, I guess it would come down to priorities. So what's the problem we're trying to solve? Where are we trying to take an organization, and what do I need to know? Given my role, what do I need to know to help be a good leader, right, to the folks around me, and make sure I can pass that down. So where I find myself not knowing what I think I need to know on a key priority, I will spend a lot of time, really as much time as necessary, to make sure I understand either a new concept or the way that we're thinking about a particular problem. So I'll do that in a lot of different ways. I love to read, so I'll always start with looking things up and focusing on what I think are kind of first principles, right? So how should something work? What are the laws that kind of govern how something should work? Kind of like a physics approach, I guess you could say. But I'll kind of start there. And then I'll certainly leverage my network um, and ask lots of different questions to lots of different people that I consider to be, experts in their particular domain that can help me rapidly assimilate some new information and get up to speed on new concepts. So I think definitely spend time reading and learning. Certainly talking to other folks that can help me learn. And again, I do that just focused on priorities. Um, and I guess the reality is that kind of trickles out into just other things that maybe are less of professional priorities. But if there's just things I like to know more about or learn about, I'll do that same thing on the personal side as well.
What an astute question. Not surprised. Manoj is always thinks different, asks a different question. And I love that where he says, as far as the rate of learning, too fast, you overcorrect, too slow, and you fall behind. It's an interesting balancing act, right? For anybody today, frankly.
It really is.
And
I think that's kind of the key is making sure you understand how to maintain that balance. And sometimes that might take a little self-discipline to know when you've learned enough so that you can show up and again lead the organization and help others versus when it becomes more of a selfish kind of thing, I guess you could say, and you want to keep going, but maybe you gotta again have that discipline to say I know enough and I'm gonna pause.
yeah, fantastic. Let's listen to part two of Manoj. You never know what's going to come, right? He's like a box of chocolates. It's you don't know what you're going to get. So let's check out part two of Manoj's two-part question.
If you could also share some experiences around how you have influenced us as an organization to change our learning rate. And related to that is this thought around emergence over control, where one of the most counterintuitive ideas in neuroscience is that intelligence can emerge without central control. And no points for guessing where I got that from and what the book was. Where have you learned to step back as a leader and let something better emerge than what you could have imagined or designed yourself?
Yeah, I love that question, and I'll take that right back to I think um, to make sure you're creating an environment where that emergence can thrive. Honestly, in my opinion, I would say emergence kind of not non-linear. Some of the parts gives you an exponential, in this case, benefit. Um, so for me, that's all about making sure the people on your team clearly understand the impact we're trying to create, not how we're going to create it. So it's much less about the solution and it's much more about what's the outcome that we need to achieve for our policyholders or our advisors, right? Or some other stakeholder in the company. And when we're clear on that, then you can involve lots of different individuals to come in and help identify different ways you can get to that outcome. And through that process, I think that's where the emergence really comes through. You're tapping into the knowledge base of not just one or maybe 5 or 6 folks on your leadership team, but you're able to actually exponentially tap into all the knowledge that exists in a particular domain and welcome that knowledge to be brought together in the spirit of solving a particular problem. That lets you have a whole set of options that you can then turn into a strategy. And the strategy doesn't have to be constant either. I think as long as you're focused on the outcome and if the world's changing quickly around you, the plan you put in place yesterday might not be the same plan you need to have in place today. And you're able to make those decisions quickly if you know where you're trying to go. If you know that outcome and your team knows the outcome and how you're going to know you got there, then I think you can do pretty much anything.
Incredible. I think you mentioned early on about surrounding yourself with great people, great leaders, and Sharmila and Manoj have already shown us that that this is real in your case. And thanks again to both of them. I'd like to double click on this topic because some new thinking, I think, for a lot of the Tech Whisperers community and for all of us, right, in terms of how you're approaching this, how you're thinking at a deeper level. So how do you operationalize it? How do you make it real? Are there certain disciplines or mechanisms, around the ways of working that make this real inside your organization?
Yeah, I think, for us, it is certainly for a group of technologists, certainly for lots of folks that came up through technology and were drawn to the field because they like to build things. You always run the risk of wanting to solution. The reality is, more often than not, that's probably a bad idea. You're not gonna be able to get where you want to go, thinking you're going to solution something in a meeting room. So I do think with the leadership team establishing some norms around how we want to talk about problems, and in particular, we really push ourselves and hold ourselves accountable to thinking about outcomes and impact, and then how we're going to know we got there. And if we can get clear on those two things and drive our conversations around that, everything else just becomes work. And we've got an amazing group of technologists in the technology department here that know exactly what work will need to get done, right, to achieve those results. So I think it's all about really making sure you have really good discipline on what's the impact you're trying to create, how are you going to know you've created it, and then getting that communication and that information into the hands of folks that can help you get there.
It's interesting because there's that stat that says we're the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with, and and people are going to realize the people that you hang around with are big thinkers. They're on a different level, and you are too. And this next mystery questioner is in that same genre of people. She's known you for probably a decade, knows you really well, knows how you think, knows how you operate. So another meaty question. I want you to hang in there with it, Sears, and also for our audience. So let's check it out.
Sears, we've known each other for over a decade. And during that time, you've not only been a beloved member of our innovation ecosystem in Boston, but you've really distinguished yourself as an executive and a leader. You've been known to apply emerging technologies and really cutting-edge data science to augment workflows, to improve the customer experience at MassMutual, and really simply to modernize the core functions of insurance. And for that, we're grateful. And these are really exciting times, I must admit, and I've been happy to be alongside you for them. But they're also intimidating to most employees today. And I'm really wondering, how do you provide your team with learning opportunities about what they can do with AI, and also the opportunity for them to share the diverse perspectives that they might bring that would continue to help you think about treating AI not just as a tool, but an operating model shift within your organization?
Yeah, that is the amazing Sarah Biller.
Indeed, indeed.
And it's an incredibly insightful question. AI can be something that we can fear, um, and it can also be something that we can be excited about using. And I think with the right mindset, and putting the fear aside and recognizing that it's a tool that we can use to advance our company's purpose, better meet the needs of the people that count on us, whether those are our policyholders or our advisors every day. I think that's the mindset that we spend a lot of time talking about and trying to instill in MassMutual. And I think internally we do that in a couple of ways. Strategically, we've got a whole body of work that is really focused on making sure we're bringing AI out to our company and getting into the hands of everybody. So again, whether that's an advisor, an associate in finance, somebody in our contact center, someone in the technology department, really everywhere in our business. We want to make sure that those tools are made available. We provide folks with training and things that they need to understand how they can best apply that technology to their role. So I would say that's I would say pretty standard stuff. The other thing that we've started to do is create spaces where people in a really unstructured way can just talk about AI. How is it helping themselves get their day-to-day done? Are there new ideas that they have that they want to share with others that they may not be able to solve on their own? So there we've done a handful of really I think impactful things where we're really intentionally letting folks get self-organized and self-select into different forums where they can either just share out what they've done. Or alternatively, come together and actually work on problems, right? So like think hackathons and things of that nature where they can really ideate and innovate on things. We've seen a ton of positive outcomes from that work. That interconnects with a much more structured approach that we take to AI. And again, unsurprisingly, it's focused on outcomes first, outcomes that are measurable. But we've got a pretty, at this point, standardized process that we roll out across our company where business leaders, first and foremost, show up with an explicit, measurable outcome that they want to achieve to advance MassMutual from a business strategy perspective. And then from there, we work backwards and say, so what's the work and what's the AI and what's the data that needs to be all put together to deliver that outcome, whether it's an experience improvement measured by an improvement in NPS, reducing the time it takes to service an inbound call from a policyholder that might want to know something about their policy, or anything in between. So I would say a combination of making sure there's a really good environment that's making folks willing and able and inspired to share their thoughts about how to use AI is one thing that we do. And then where we really want to do things at scale to drive some really focused outcomes, it's an integrated end-to-end business-led approach to bringing all of this new technology together.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah, for the very insightful question. Maybe I'd like to double click on something that she mentioned. She talked about the innovation ecosystem in Boston. There's something pretty special going on there, and you and MassMutual are very integral to that. So, because you've only been here in that part of the country for a decade and a half, maybe, but talk about that. What is so magical about the Boston tech innovation scene?
Yeah, well, I think, and it's great that we had Sarah ask this question because she's equally a really impactful member of the fintech scene here in Boston and has been a member of that community for many years. I have the pleasure of serving as a co-chair of what's called the Mass FinTech Hub. So this is a public-private partnership with the state of Massachusetts that has a goal of making sure Massachusetts is a global hub for all things fintech. So you can think talent, technology, certainly business and things of that nature. That is a community-led organization that really represents the best of what's in the state of Massachusetts and in the greater Boston area. We've got venture capital leaders that participate in the community. We've got startup founders. We've got universities. And then, of course, we've got corporates like MassMutual all giving back and making sure that we're creating an environment that fosters innovation and makes it easier to actually innovate, particularly when it comes to things like fintech and AI, by connecting all the different stakeholders in ways that accelerate ideation, business creation, and ultimately great outcomes for our customers that use the products and services that are created.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's pretty special, and Sears, I'm thinking about your journey at MassMutual 13 years ago. You get the call. You were doing some very different things, entrepreneurial, innovative, and innovation is what brought you to MassMutual. And You were very articulate in telling me that what's kept you is the purpose, right? The mission, what you do. But I'm just curious, you were brought there to build a data science muscle, platform, whatever you want to call it, at a time when people weren't thinking about that. You're always an early innovator. So talk about that. What did they see in you, right? Because you weren't from the insurance industry at that time, right? You were kind of an outsider. And what made that early bet so valuable to you and the company today?
I guess I'll first start off by saying, a lot of people might not think of a 175-year-old financial services company as one that thrives on innovation. I'm here to tell you, MassMutual thrives on innovation in so many different ways. It's actually part of the culture here, and certainly part of the thinking that our board of directors and executive leadership team have. Certainly our CEO, Roger Crandall. So there's always been a desire to innovate when it will benefit our policyholder, and they're not afraid to do that over the long haul. So what did they see in me all those years ago when I was so lucky to have the opportunity to join the company. I told them during the interview, listen, I'm not really sure what life insurance is. I don't know too much about the industry. And they said, yep, that's a good thing. We're not asking you to know that. We've got lots of experts across this business that can help you learn those kinds of things. What we are eager to do is bring someone in with a set of skills and a mindset that wants to go look for meaningful problems to solve that are going to benefit the company. And that was something I convinced them I could do. As we kind of said here, they were doing that during the kind of the big data. And for those that are familiar with insurance, during that whole big data digital transformation tech wave. So we started that, pretty early, and came into the organization. Certainly identified some very high impact outcomes that if we were able to achieve those through some combination of data and AI and changes in experience, right, we'd be able to really transform the company and really advance the industry. So it certainly came like you said, that got me really excited. So dove in head first. And like you said, what's kept me here is where we started. We're a mutual. We're owned by our policy owners. We have got a great mission here. We help secure people's future and protect the ones they love. I wake up every day feeling really good that that's what I get to go to work and do and help advance. So it's just an amazing culture with a timeless purpose, and then this desire to just change. Right, things change, and certainly in the technology environment, things are changing just so fast right now. So yeah, it's an amazing place.
Very rich. A lot of people are considering new opportunities, new roles, new careers, different industries. And I wanted to get into this with you for that very reason, because there was so many nuggets there on how to go through decision making, right, through those things, and how it works on the other side. If you get in and you put the head down and you do the work and you study and you learn and you innovate. Talk more about Roger Crandall, your boss. I've been in the room with him during the annual policyholder meeting in Springfield, Massachusetts. I get his letters and I read them. People talk about Warren Buffett's letters. They talk about Jeff Bezos' letters. You want to read Roger's letters. Like he's good. So talk about him, but also the criticality of the CEO-CIO relationship and what that partnership means to being so leading. You guys are way out in front in a lot of ways. You just don't tell anybody about it, right? So, but I think that relationship is a big part of that equation, especially at scale and pace, the way you're doing it.
Roger is an amazing CEO. it's a pleasure to be on his leadership team and work with him and work for him. I will certainly start right there. I will say to your point on, innovation and things, Roger is one of the most, if not the most innovative leader at the company, and he is pushing everybody to act the same. In order to show up, I think when we go to the CEO-CIO relationship, right, one of the really, I think, important things that somebody that is more skilled on technology than other parts of the business needs to do is be able to listen to the aspirations that we want to accomplish as a company for our policyholders, and being able to, in real time, understand whether or not, right, those aspirations are achievable, right? How's it going to work? How do you translate, an aspiration or a vision into something that you can actually bring to life? And that's where I get a lot of my energy from. I really enjoy working right up at that kind of the boundary or the intersection of technology and business. And I get a lot of energy of working with, colleagues that are skilled in other areas. Roger, certainly an amazing CEO, an amazing investor. So thinking about how to take his grand visions and ideas and, again, translate them into systems that we can bring to life within the company is, I think for effective CIOs, they've got to be capable of doing that. And it's certainly something I really, really enjoy doing.
Well, keep up the great work, Roger. We're all pulling for you because what you're all doing really matters. So thank you for that. I've got another brilliant questioner coming up here. As they say in your part of the world in Boston, he's wicked smart. Okay, that's what you say in Boston, right? And so this is somebody who spent a career looking at innovation, being on the forefront of data science, AI, all these things. And he has a really important question about the role of humans, the role of machines. So let's listen in, and I can't wait to hear what your response to this question.
Hello, Sears. You and I talked about this a few times, and I think we agree that the pace of change in AI is simply extraordinary. New capabilities bring new possibilities, but also introduce disruption in the way we go about doing things. Leaders everywhere wrestle with AI's impact on jobs, what work should be relegated to AI, and what work requires humans to augment what is possible with AI.
Yes.
Okay, mic drop.
That is a very good colleague of mine, Ozzer, from Boston University. Great to hear from you, Ozzer. Look, I think he hit the nail on the head. I think the work that we used to do the work. There's a world where, again, we're just doing much less work. However, we're still accountable for it. So the AI might carry out those tasks on our behalf, but understanding what those tasks are doing and, again, how they map back to an outcome and some results is something that I think we're always going to have to be accountable for and understand. So I think learning how to learn, knowing that AI is a tool that can advance a business, can make somebody's life easier, all of those great things. But the accountability for what those tools do and how they do it ultimately is still the role of us. And so I think on the one hand, we talked about this earlier. There's certainly probably some anxiety about AI and the impact that it may have. And again, there's two ways to look at that. You can be worried and anxious. On the other hand, you can see it as opportunity. You can see it as opportunity to just do so much more than any one person could ever do. But before this was in our own hands. So I think really making sure to remain optimistic about AI, recognize that it is a superpower. It's a tool. And the folks that are going to be able to get the most impact out of it are the ones that are going to lean into what it can do and learn about its limits understand how to measure those limits and make decisions around where it's appropriate and inappropriate to put AI to use in their company or in their personal life is going to be really important.
You talked earlier about the Boston innovation ecosystem, and part of that equation are the amazing schools you've got there, and Ozer and Boston University, a great example of that. So thanks to him. And I'd love to be in a room where the two of you are just kind of going at it, like just kind of ripping off each other and talking about all these things. But appreciate him. Look forward to meeting him someday. And another mystery questioner. I want to kind of add to this next mystery question. And as you respond to it, I want you to also take a minute and talk about your team, because you'd be very upset with me if I didn't give you the opportunity, because you're always bragging about them. So, but how do you? This question gets to translating all of these things into how people show up and how they work and how they deliver every day. So, check out this question and then rip on your team a little bit at the same time.
Sears, one thing you do really well is elevate your team's focus by talking about impact. MassMutual impact, ETX impact, and the impact of your big initiatives. So how does focusing on impact help your team?
It's that is Josh Allwit, an amazing leadership coach that I've had the pleasure of learning from for many years. And Josh was the one that really helped me, I think, transition from focusing on solutions and work to focusing on impact. And I think, again, going back to what we talked about at the beginning, focusing on impact allows you to lead through others. Focusing on impact allows you to mobilize large groups of individuals and get the best out of them. It empowers them to focus on achieving goals. It empowers them to focus on the how, the optimal way to get to where you want to go. So I think that's what I've seen that the benefits of focusing on impact really being. And I think my leadership team is amazing at doing this, probably better than me, honestly. They certainly keep me in check from time to time and help me resist. Sometimes I can't still, but help me resist, solutioning when we really shouldn't. But yeah, spending time as a team, establishing the discipline, the norms, kind of the ways of working so that you stay focused on the impact. Again, it's a superpower in my opinion. And again, it lets you lead incredibly effectively through others, and it lets you bring out the best of an organization, right? When you can frame things in terms of impact and outcomes, I think you create an environment for innovation. You create an environment for ideation, and you create an environment where you can empower others, right, to carry those ideas out to realization.
Thank you very much, Josh, for triggering that great question and answer. Tell us about your organization, size. Take us inside the work that's going on. And I guess this is a chance to give some love to your broader team, but also what's it like to work there? Like for future talent, why should they want to go to work for MassMutual?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you right now, if you aspire or get energy from innovating, and at the same time you want to be part of an organization that has so much incredible history and has, in my opinion, an amazing purpose and an amazing mission. This is the best of both worlds. And actually, just maybe going back to the question we talked about with joining MassMutual, that was another thing I realized at the time. I'd been looking at lots of different startups and things that all had amazing missions. But none of them were a big 175-year-old institution with millions of customers and a lot of stability and an ability to genuinely think long term, right? So Roger, he thinks about things in decades. not in quarters, right? And so there was a really unique opportunity there. So I would just say anybody that's interested in and wants to work in an environment where they can have their cake and eat it too, is kind of like how I like to frame it. This is a great place to do that. We're a global organization. So we've got folks in the technology department all around the world working on everything from cybersecurity to data engineering and AI and software development and system administration and DevOps and cloud and really everything in between, right? We're a pretty large technology shop. And we are a 175-year-old company. So we've got an incredibly complex technology environment that spans maybe not quite the 175 years we've been around, but it spans many generations of technology. And so, some people might look at that and say, I'm not sure I want to do that. I'm not sure I want to work on that technology. I only want to work on the new technology. There's some really unique things that happen in an organization that has kind of the full spectrum of tech, old and new. If you're not innovative and you're not a creative thinker, you're not going to be able to deliver those experiences that, right, as a policyholder, Dan, you expect, or maybe that your advisor expects. So you've got to be innovative and understand how to work in a complex environment. And come up with really cool solutions, nifty things that work across everything from old kind of on-prem servers to lambda functions and API calls, all to serve one policyholder that might have a policy that they bought 15 years ago, and now they're a wealth client, and they want to look at their assets in their 401k portfolio. So
Amazing. Such a part of your story in MassMutual is you do all these things for your people internally, but you also do a lot for the communities around you, right? And so I think this next question, this Tech for Good scholarship, right? We have a lot of fun with that here, doing a lot of really great things for organizations. Do you have somebody in mind that you'd like to honor with this scholarship?
yeah, I'm really excited to say we'd love to give the Tech for Good scholarship to the Tech Foundry. So for those that don't know, that the Tech Foundry is a group based out of Springfield, Massachusetts. MassMutual has been a longtime supporter of this incredible group. They focus on providing resources to low and middle income students that are looking to break into the tech industry. So through our relationship with them, we've been able to not only provide funding upwards of $400,000 to help folks there, but we've also had the opportunity to provide jobs. And bring folks in either through internships or other forms, and let them actually see what it's like to be part of a technology environment like MassMutual, learn new things about the tech, how to work on a tech team and the like. So really excited to be able to offer Tech Foundry the Tech for Good scholarship.
That is cool. I have not heard of Tech Foundry, so thank you for helping us amplify them. They're great work. We'll get them on our website. We'll certainly amplify them. Thank you to MassMutual for investing time and treasure. $400,000 is a big deal, and what's cool. I'm just doing the math in my head. Not a math major, but between the Tech for Good scholarship, which we're now over $500,000 in commitments, and what you've done with Tech Foundry, that's $1 million of goodness, Sears. So how awesome is that, right?
That is awesome. Talk about positive impact.
So good. And, they will have the ability to send one of their folks, whether a staff member or volunteer or one of their sponsors, through our 9-month TechLX leadership program. So world-class. I was part of a graduation yesterday, and the impact we're making with these managers and directors is huge. So thank you for the shout out on them.
Yeah, phenomenal. Thank you.
Well, Sears, I want to pivot and get into the article that we're going to write. So I want to kind of put a bow on the podcast, but I've just heard so many themes today that just keep resonating in my brain. You talk a lot about innovation, but you really got into how you do that. Like it's the intentionality, the things that you do to make it real, the instilling of new mindsets, how you do it. I think that you act your way to new thinking, right? But then you continue to think your way to new acting. The focus on impact and outcomes, the discipline, the rigor you put into it. Thank you so much. I mean, you've taught me a lot, and I think you've really helped our Tech Whisperers community immensely today. So thank you for all that.
Well, thank you. It's been a phenomenal conversation.
Wow, that was absolutely amazing. And, we started this conversation by me not telling the Sears Merritt story, but revealing it over time. And, what came through, at least for me as a leader who doesn't chase attention, he compounds impact quietly, consistently over time. And at the center of all this is a simple but powerful idea. Consistency isn't accidental, it's engineered, it's curated through decisions, through discipline, and through a culture that's really built for change and not reacting to it. And maybe the biggest reveal of all in the last 45 minutes, we were reminded that isn't just about technology or even transformation. It's about becoming an outcome orchestrator where you're not just measuring performance, you're shaping it. So if you want to learn more about Sears, I'm revealing more about his big brain and how he thinks, how he operates in a story I'm running for CIO.com. So go check that out in 8 days from now. It builds on the conversation we just had, and you'll find the new concepts we talk about equally compelling. You won't want to miss it. So until next time, enjoy, and we'll see you next time.